Biography of Saint Geevarghese Mor Gregorios. Saint Geevarghese Mor Gregorios was born on 15th June 1848 in Mulanthurthi, Kerala, as the youngest son of Kochumattai and Maria of the Pallath Chaturthi house. He was called by the name Kochai Pora. Kochai Pora belonged to the Mulanthurthi Marthoman Church, where he was baptized and received the name Geevarghese. Upon their mother's demise, when he was 2 years old, Geevarghese was raised by his elder sister, Mary. Geevarghese completed his pre-primary education at the feet of Onakavil Ayya and later under Maniashan. This place where he started his education was later converted to a shrine, and a Kurishpalli stands in its place today. Geevarghese used to meditate and study the scriptures with his peers at a place called Tushikunnu near his house. The famous Perumpilli church is now located at this Tushikunnu. It is the Reverend Geevarghese Malpan, paternal uncle of Geevarghese, as well as a Syriac scholar who recognized the call of God in Geevarghese and taught him the Syriac language and later introduced him to theological studies. On 14 September 1858, at the age of 10, Geevarghese was ordained as subdeacon or Kuroyo by His Grace Palakunath Matthews Mor Athanasios at the St. George Church in Karingachira. Reverend Geevarghese Malpan passed away due to the smallpox pandemic in 1863, but Geevarghese, who too had acquired this disease, miraculously escaped. Following this, Geevarghese went to his sister Ailey's place in Pambakoda and continued his theological studies under Reverend Martin Connaught. He then stayed at the Mulanthurthi Marthoman Church and became proficient in the Syriac language and beliefs under the notable guidance of Saint Joachim Mor Gregorios, the delegate of the Holy See of Antioch. In 1865, at the age of 17, Geevarghese was ordained as Shamshono by the Saint Joachim Mor Gregorios at the Kodamangalam Marthomancharya Palli. In that same year, he was raised to the ranks of Kashisho and Corpiscopo at the Agaparambu Mor Sabor Mor Afroth Jacobite Syrian Church. Very Reverend Geevarghese Corpiscopo continued to lead a spiritual life at the Vettikal Daira near Mulanthurthi. Many who had heard of his divine glory came to the Daira for prayers. In 1872, Geevarghese Corpiscopo was ordained as Ramban by His Grace Mor Divanasios Joseph Pulikotil at the Mulanthurthi Marthoman Church. In 1875, when His Holiness More and More Ignatius Peter IV arrived in Kerala from Antioch, Geevarghese Ramban worked as his secretary and interpreter. Geevarghese Ramban became instrumental in leading the consecration of the Holy Chrism at Mulanthurthi in 1876. It is under the leadership and guidance of Geevarghese Ramban that the church proceedings of the historic Mulanthurthi Synod of 1876 was translated and published under the name Mulanthurthi Padiola. On 10th December 1876, at the age of 28, Geevarghese Ramban was ordained as Metropolitan under the name Mor Gregorios by His Holiness More and More Ignatius Peter IV at the North Parur Church and was entrusted with the charge of Niranam Diocese. Being the youngest among the metropolitans of that time, Mor Gregorios was affectionately called as Kochu Thirumeni. When Mor Gregorios assumed the rank of Metropolitan, he wrote a treaty with his own hand, recording his allegiance to the throne of Antioch and unwavering faith towards the Syriac faith, and submitted it to the Patriarch of Antioch. It was Mor Gregorios who translated to Malayalam and published the rules and procedures of the Jacobite Syrian Church, which was written by His Holiness More and More Ignatius Peter IV at Fort Kochi Church in 1877. Under the opinion of His Grace Mor Divanasios Joseph Pulikotil, the then overseer of the Malankara Church, the charge of Parumala Seminary was handed over to Thirumeni. When Arigapuram Mathan Karnavar gave a piece of land to the Malankara Metropolitan at Parumala, who was subjected to the throne of Antioch, Mor Gregorios stayed there and oversaw the construction of the church. Mor Gregorios was later entrusted with the charge of the Thumbaman and Kollam dioceses. By this time, many had witnessed and experienced miracles through the prayers of this Holy Father. The prayers of this Holy Father not only helped to ward off satanic powers, but also to relieve the spread of smallpox in the Thumbaman region. Reverend Father Alvarez, a Jesuit priest who converted to the Syriac faith, was ordained as Ramban and later as Metropolitan under the name Mor Julius by Mor Gregorios. In 1892, Mor Gregorios and his associates travelled to Sri Lanka and ordained Reverend Father Rene Velate as Metropolitan under the name Timotheus. In February 1895, Mor Gregorios and his associates visited the Holy Land. Upon his return, Mor Gregorios authored a book titled Urshlim Yatra Vivaranam in Malayalam, which is widely known. To inculcate true Syrian faith among the congregation, Mor Gregorios not only conducted theological classes at the Parumala Seminary, but also established several schools. Frequent kneeling and prayers and restless church activities exhausted Mor Gregorios, causing him to fall ill. On 2nd November 1902, his illness became severe and he was anointed with the holy oil and received the holy Kurbana. Thus, Chaturthil Geevarghese Mor Gregorios, the light of Malankara, left for his heavenly abode on 2nd November 1902. His body was entombed in Parumala on 4th November. We can see in writings that once when a famous photographer, Zachariah de Cruz, came to take a photograph of Mor Gregorios, the Holy Father made the dark clouds in the sky vanish and turned the unfavorable weather to a favorable one. The oil painting of Mor Gregorios, done by Ravi Verma at the Kumaragam Ahatamangalam St. John's Jacobite Syrian Church, is famous. According to history, although Ravi Verma only had a half-completed picture of Mor Gregorios as a reference, he was able to complete the entire painting through an unexplainable divine vision. According to the bull number E265-87 of the year 1987, His Holiness More and More Ignatius Zaka I was the first to declare and include the name of Mor Gregorios in the 5th Tubdain of the Holy Kurbana. The Holy Church commemorates the remembrance of this Holy Father on 2nd of November every year. Thousands take refuge in the intercession of the saint who leads a holy life with prayer and zealous faith, and has always been a blessing to the faithful.